Redditors who are dating someone that went from I think I want to marry this person to I think I need a restraining order. What happened? I was young, dumb, and thought I was in love, and ignored many red flags. As he got more comfortable around me, he let his crazy out. Someone stole his cell phone and he asked me to purchase a shotgun for him, so he could go shoot the person who did it. It took me another year and a half to leave. I did try breaking up with him, but he told me that if I ever tried to break up with him again he'd kill everyone I love, and then himself, so I'd know what it was like to be alone. That relationship ended in an order of protection against domestic violence. He was nuts. We were in a long distance relationship for over 3 years and eventually it started to fizzle. She'd tell me to move to the States and drop my college degree, my family and my animals to live as an illegal immigrant, and I could just do whatever odd jobs I could find just to be with her. I told her I needed to wait. She'd get very upset every time I went out with friends and would bombard my Facebook wall with random crap and send me private messages with passive aggressive insults and threats of suicide. I broke it off with her and moved on, but she kept messaging me asking to be friends. I tried, but she'd randomly blow up at me insulting me for ruining her life by making her think she could be loved. I told her she did deserve love, and she'd get even more upset. We couldn't talk at all. Last year she messaged me yet again. We broke up in 2013, telling me that I had a legal obligation to marry her, since I said I would 5 years ago, and therefore she expected me to just fly up there and fulfill my obligation to her. Had to block her. Started dating in high school, had some ups and downs, but at the time I just chalked it up to us being immature. My last 2 years of college really proved he just had serious issues. When I moved out of state for good, it's like a switch flipped, and he got extremely possessive and controlling. Wanted all my friends' numbers, gave me a schedule of when we need to be in communication, and if I missed any he was blowing my phone up with threats of suicide. Finally got the restraining order when he showed up to my friend's apartment looking for me, threatening to call the police because I still had a pair of his shoes that I didn't even have. When I was in a relationship that went from good and fun to why am I smashing plates in a blind rage in a year and a half, I really didn't appreciate how much someone can drag you into hell with them. I think my crazy was self-defense. The first 9 months or so were amazing. We had so much fun, threw great parties for all our friends, went to all the concerts, etc. Then for about 5 to 6 months things got rocky, and he started becoming obsessed with the idea that I was emotionally cheating on him. The last 3 months were pure hell. The things he was accusing me of made no sense. The situations we would get into were insane, and somehow always my fault, and he would abandon me there saying I was the reason things had gotten out of control, and that he had to leave for his own protection. It made me feel like a monster. I signed up with a therapist because I thought I was having a psychiatric break. After a while, every time I saw him, it started with my apologies for how I acted the last time, and I would try to be as shut down as possible, and then my phone would buzz, and he would look at me accusingly, and then act distant the rest of the night, and I would be like, it's my mom. My mom is texting me. Look, my phone is unlocked. It's just my mom. And he would still act sour the whole rest of the night, withholding affection. Every physical gesture of disgust and disappointment. Every moment of every day became a full-time job of proving to him I was better, that I wasn't crazy, but everything I did to do that made me look crazier. I left him in a huge dramatic fit of rage finally, and it took months to normalize, and only in hindsight can I see how I went from being a pretty normal person with normal people problems to followed him to the depths of my personality's ability to retaliate against lies, and then I fought my way kicking and screaming out of that hole, and left him down there. I had never acted that way before or since. I have never gotten into rages towards anyone like that, other than when in that relationship with him, and this was 4 years ago, so I'm pretty sure I'm not insane, as it started and stopped all within the time he was in my life. The only consolation is that within months of us breaking up, he burned every bridge with every friend we had, lost his job, and ended up moving out of state. I still live here and have a pleasant quiet life with someone else, and I'm still friends with the people that were our mutual friends during that relationship. I'm a lot less judgment when I see someone have a very out of character age fit now though. Jesus Christ, it is so possible to be sucked into someone else's crazy, and since it's all out of context for you, you don't know how to act, and you look like the crazy one. I was dating a guy who was very sweet in the beginning. After about 6 months he got possessive. He didn't trust me. An example of this was one night I told him I was meeting a friend I used to work with at a bar a block away. We lived in a safe area, and it was a short walk. Her name sounded like it could be male or female, but I assured him she was a she. He showed up at the bar while we were there, and it made him look very insecure. He began tracking my phone's GPS. I found out when I stopped at a relative's house after work on my way home, and he freaked out and called my mom. She actually knew that was where I was, and he had a hard time believing I wasn't cheating. The last straw was my first week at a new job. I worked nights and had my phone. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. After I broke up with him, I got emails for months swinging between apologies and telling me I was the abuser. I got emails telling me he was being drugged. It was insane. I graduated. She wanted to transfer schools. So, we moved to a college town, where she told me she'd been accepted as a transfer. Turns out she hadn't been accepted, and when she applied, was not accepted. She got a job at Walmart, while trying to figure out her next move. After about 2 months she decides we should move to Pittsburgh. She's convinced this will solve all her problems and make her happy, except we are in a recession and I just got my first good job. I don't want to move. She became abusive. I didn't want to go home. She was constantly negative and on the edge of a screaming fight. I was just avoiding her at the end. We were together 4 years before that, and she was always moody but not abusive. 6 months of that, and she went to her hometown to take a semester at a local school and stay with her parents. I called her 2 weeks later and told her to come back. It had been like a weight was lifted from me, and I never wanted to see her again. I'll throw my hat into the ring here. Dated a chick years ago. She was essentially everything I thought I wanted in a girl. She was cute, funny, liked just enough things I liked for us to have common interests, but just different enough to show each other new things and experiences. I was heavy into her, and she was heavy into. Then things got weird. She started getting jealous of high school friends I'd known way before her, and even went as far as telling me I wasn't allowed to hang out with some of my female friends except for the few she thought were uglier than her. Things got worse. She started getting jealous of inanimate objects like my game consoles and video games, some of which she gave me. It came to a head when my grandmother asked me to watch her dog. She was a tiny hand dog that I adored, and one day I was half asleep and saw her literally kick this tiny dog off my bed, like with her feet. I asked her what the hell her problem was, and she told me that she doesn't like that I give the dog more attention than her. Things got even worse. She would physically abuse me when I did things she didn't like, such as bending my fingers, hitting me in the face, etc. Eventually everything I did she didn't like. After a while I got the courage to dump her ass, and she tries to tell me she's pregnant to keep me, which is an obvious lie. After that I discovered she'd still stalk my Facebook page and told some of her friends and mutual friends that I was the abuser. I also learned that when I was away she let dudes feel her up and other stuff too. Luckily I've landed a great girl that cares about me, and I isn't a jealous psycho like she was. When I was about 20 years old, I dated a guy who was 13 years older than me. I was young and dumb, and he knew it. At first, things were fine. We met at work, we both delivered pizza. We'd have fun on shift, then go out on dates afterward, and then I'd crash at his place. There were things I didn't like about him. He was a little racist and misogynistic, but I figured I could gently lead him out of it. The I got a GTFO moment came one night when my twin brother lost his house key. He called and asked me to let him into his house. I told Mr. Douche that I was going to go let my brother in. He said, "No, you're staying with me." I reiterated that this is my twin brother and I'm going to let him in. He said, "You don't understand. You made plans with me and you stay with me. Twin bro is an adult. He can figure something out. Like calling his sister, maybe? Yeah, I'm out." Nope. He reminded me that he's much bigger than me and can make me do whatever he wants. It can be as easy or as painful for me as he thinks he needs to make it. Okay, fine. I called twin bro and told him what was going on, and he called our mom. From then on, Mr. Douche became controlling and possessive. He had to speak to me at least twice a day, in person or on the phone. He wouldn't let me close a store alone. He tried to convince me that my twin brother, the guy I've known since before I was even born, was a bad influence who wanted to split us up. I mean, it was true. Twin bro saw Mr. Douche's true colors before I did. He never hit me, but he threatened me, and he kept me awake, and he belittled me whenever he could. I broke up with Mr. Douche by renting a car, driving to the laundromat, where he was doing his laundry under the pretense of helping, and parking a block over at the convenience store. I folded a couple shirts, told him I was breaking up with him, and walked out like a boss, then ran next door, hopped in the rental car, drove it like I stole it, and turned my phone off. I got a new phone and number the next day. A few months ago, he popped up on Facebook. I got a legit hyperventilation / carpopidal spasm / oh fuck I'm gonna die panic attack, even though this happened nearly half my life ago. And then I thank my husband for not being a garbage human. I dated a girl for a year and a half, after being single for 6 years. Everything was hunky-dory, even though our second official date was Easter dinner with her family. Yikes. Should have seen it then. Until our 1-year anniversary, she was upset she didn't get the magic ring for Christmas, which she'd been pushing for. I really loved her, and did want to marry her. She started pushing for us to live together, even though neither of us were ready, nor could afford to pay the rent, utilities, and food, with our combined income. She talked of babies, living together in a town far away from my work, my family, my friends, close to her family, her job, her friends. If I wouldn't answer her texts, worked third shift, so when she was awake, I was sleeping, or just getting up, so not awake yet, she'd flip out at me. Things finally came to a head one week. We'd had an argument about living together again, which devolved into whenever we spent time together, I'd always fall asleep in her arms. Third shift, 60+ hours a week, really tired, and she never got to spend quality time with me, because I always fell asleep. This argument continued for 3 days, with her blowing me up at work. Finally, I realized I wasn't ever going to make her happy, no matter what. So I ended it, cut ties, and never looked back. Oh damn, finally a thread for me. Started dating a guy in college who seemed totally normal. He was relatively shy and reserved about his family. I thought this was just because they had only become citizens about 8 years prior and they were still very Mexican and not very Americanized, which is always a risk given the political climate. He moved in with me and everything seemed great until suddenly it wasn't. He stopped showering, stopped going to class or doing homework, and stopped sleeping. He would spend nights on end watching conspiracy theory videos about how the government was covering up the existence of dinosaurs and aliens. He started to fail classes and got even more unhinged. He believed that the Illuminati was controlling the brainwaves of people through pop music on the radio and wouldn't let us listen to it in the car. He said my friends gave him bad energy. He'd go home and his mom would force him onto weird diets. One week he'd be banned from eating yeast. Another week he'd be allowed to only eat spoonfuls of nutritional yeast. His mother convinced him she cured cancer by not eating bread. He became more and more unhinged, and I resented him more and more, but he lost it when I questioned his church. His family was members of a church that I'm firmly convinced is a cult that preys on Mexican immigrants. Ultimately, I stopped putting up with his nonsense. I told him he couldn't be a greasy smelly loser in my house anymore. I offered help. I offered to pay for therapy and help, but when I asked if his church was influencing his beliefs, he lost his mind. His church told him he had to dump me, and thank God he did. He spent about 2 months back with his insane abusive family before desperately trying to get back together with me by incessantly calling and texting. Dodged a major bullet there, and the trash took itself out honestly. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for threads you would like to see done, drop them in the comments below, and I will try to get to them.